You're over there like, no one's holding up a mirror for me. Like, I want to find my Ryzan so that I can be perfect, so that I can grow for him. Girl, no.
Find your Woody.
Find your... Because we all need a friend
Woody?
in us.
Like Toy Story.
Yeah.
Find your Woody.
You got a friend in me.
Hey.
Who's scared, Edgar?
Hi, guys.
We're back.
We're back.
Hi, guys.
I hope you...
Season 3.
Episode
2.
We hope you liked the first episode.
And
Of
if you
the
didn't,
season.
don't tell me. I can't handle it. My feelings will be hurt.
Actually, just tell us like very insightful, wonderful, lovely ways to improve. But don't
Beautiful
word it
and
any
don't
differently or I'll
caring
cry.
Constructive criticism. Nothing else will be tolerated.
No, as in we will cry and then we'll never look at the comments again, and then we'll just hope that it's better. Well, anywho, okay, we have season 3
maybe-
off to a rolling start.
We'll be enemies.
Maybe,
If you
and then
comment
wait,
something
and
evil,
then maybe
we'll
we'll
be
be
enemies.
and then maybe we'll be lovers.
And then maybe we'll fall in love.
Today, we wanted to talk about one of our favorite tropes.
Yes.
One of our favorite. I eat that thing.
Yeah. No, my favorite trope as a kid was best friends to lovers, but now that I'm getting older, I love enemies to lovers. I've always loved enemies to lovers.
Enemies to lovers.
We just have so much rage inside of our bodies. And I just want to take it out on someone and then be like, it's okay, princess.
it's okay, princess, I love you still.
And I'll be like, oh my God, that's so sweet. I don't know. As you get older, I feel like you're not allowed to have tantrums as much. But if you're enemies to lovers, thank God you had that tantrum. Because now you found your soulmate for it.
Sure.
What is enemies to lovers?
In case someone is watching this and is like, what the are those girls talking about? So basically, it's where the love interests in a story, if it's a romance or a romantic subplot, it's where they start off opposing each other in some way. They're up against each other. They don't like each other, and then through the course of the story, throughout the plot of the story, they end up in a romantic relationship.
I remember when I was younger on Wattpad searching up enemies to lovers. Because truly, I think like the basis of it is just finding someone who accepts you despite all of your flaws.
Yeah.
And I think in my formative years, I was just trying to figure out who I was, and your identity's so up in the air and confusing and complicated, and you're like, who am I going to end up? Who am I going to be? And then enemies to lovers was like, don't worry. Like, even if you're completely opposites, or you hate each other, or there's parts of you that are unfavorable at times, you can go on a journey where you can eventually be like accepted for who you are.
And it really brings your flaws out to light, you know? Like if you're enemies and you don't like each other, you know each other's flaws getting into it. And I think there's the psychological element I've seen people talk about with this is people like it because you get to wear yourself on your sleeve. You get to, all your flaws are just out in the open along with your partners, and you know each other well enough, and you're allowed to fuck up basically.
Yeah, and I think on that too, like there's a lot of pressure, especially for women, but for everybody to be perfect for your partner. And so to have someone that you don't have to be perfect for, you know, that like you're saying, like that knows your flaws, but they still want to be with you.
Because I feel like we put a lot of pressure on ourselves to be perfect, but it's just not the reality. You will never be perfect. So to know that someone is going to accept you in that vulnerable state is probably one of the most comforting things in the world. And I love this trope. I eat it up. When it's well done, it is so well done.
So I thought I would break it down.
Yeah, because
you have to like break it down in like the structure of the story, right? So there has to be, they start out opposing each other in some way. There has to be a reason for them to be enemies, but it can't be too terrible, like they murdered their entire family, but it also can't be too trite, like you looked at me funny the other day.
Yeah,
like,
you ate my donut.
Yeah, literally. It's like it has to be something along the lines of like there we have frenemies to lovers, like in Pride and Prejudice, where there's like a misunderstanding or there's like a bad first impression, which a misunderstanding shouldn't carry the whole film or book, because then it will
It gets annoying.
It gets annoying.
It gets
And also
frustrating.
very
there should be
easily
other conflict after that, but
yeah, very
that's
frustrating.
why they start out not liking each other. There's some sort of like frenemies.
I think that's the most common one.
Yeah,
Frenemies to lovers.
they can
Big in princess movies and like that kind of thing too.
yeah,
where
where
they're
they
forced
can
to-
exist together in the same
Yeah.
space.
Because you like to see that conflict in the same room. Because if they're enemies, like what you said,
Like
I feel
true enemies,
they wouldn't even be in the same
They
space.
can't be in the same room.
Yeah.
They want to kill each other.
Like in She-Ra and Catra cannot be in the same room.
Who anyone
That's an
Who?
animated TV show on Netflix.
I was like, mm-hmm.
Hey, right. Wait, what?
Sorry,
Feyre?
it was She-Ra and Catra from the show She-Ra on Netflix.
She-Ra.
Okay, and it's
Feyre,
good.
She-Ra,
It's
Catra.
good?
It's great.
Oh, noted.
Cool.
Noted.
Watch that.
Well, I got something
It's
to do
good.
later. Okay.
And then there's another sub guess is like rivals to lovers. This one, think like academic rivals. There's a movie I watched. I cannot remember the freaking name of it, but they are both trying to be the valedictorian at their high school.
Super common.
Yeah, so like an academic rival or like maybe a work rival. They're both going for a promotion at work.
Debate team.
Debate teams. Princess Diaries 2, they both want the crown. But like they're thrust onto like different teams. So maybe they're not like personal rivals, but because they have the same goal or they're competing for something, they are technically enemies. They're rivals. And then the final one is that like enemies where they want to harm each other. They like are like in She-Ra, they're literally fighting a war on opposite sides, and they're like the main force on each opposite side. And these ones you see more in like your science fiction and your fantasy, and those because you already are suspending disbelief, so you can kind of accept that they were trying to kill each other and now they're trying to fuck each other.
And I think why it works so well too, especially, and I honestly, I wish that they made more like true enemies to lovers where they were at each other's throats, is because to just jump into a love story where the tension is that high, like it just heightens everything.
The passion and
Yeah.
the like anger. And I think too, like why I think that's such a big thing is because like anger is one of the biggest passion emotions.
There's a lot of passion in enemies to
and
lovers. Yeah.
sex and love. Those are all very passion driven. So when you go from being angry to then having a romantic relationships, it's like the burst of emotion of passion.
And anger really is like kind of a full body encompassment when you have it. And you, Callie, and you were talking about too how how it works so well because you immediately there's conflict.
Yeah. And because like stories really truly ride on conflict. Like your story is gonna suck if there's no conflict in it. And interpersonal conflict is both relatable and fun to read or watch. Like banter and bickering is like people love that in their romances. Your characters have to banter, otherwise why the hell do we care about them like in story? And so like enemies to lovers just immediately introduces great conflict from the get-go. And
Is that why we haven't fallen in love yet?
because we don't have enough conflict.
Yeah.
Do we have to be enemies? Sorry, guys.
Should we start a conflict right now?
And then I also have here where it says your characters are forced to grapple with their worst faults. Kind of what we had just talked about, where like your characters have to look their flaws and their faults in the eyes and be like, I need to change for this person, or I need to change in general. Like you can, like, who better to tell you what you need to change about yourself than your enemy?
And we'll come back to that later when we talk more about how it's done well. But there's a few that say they're enemies to lovers, and I was disappointed by.
Mm-hmm.
So I think one of those, like, how do they do it wrong? Like I think of a few examples.
Yes, I think obviously the beginning of this is like they both have to be each other's enemy. So I think the first example, that's one of my most controversial opinions, is I don't think Rhysand and Feyre are enemies.
And ACOTAR.
Akamath.
A Court of Mist
Wait,
and Fury.
ACOTAR is only the first one.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Well, the whole series is called ACOTAR.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay.
But like the one where they are having their storyline, they were never true enemies. Feyre didn't like him, but he never didn't like her. So then they're not enemies. They're not even rivals or frenemies. It's like she's just being a punk and he's just like, she'll fall in love with me eventually. And that is its own thing, but it's not enemies to lovers.
He kind of had control of the situation in a way
Yeah.
because he was manipulating her and everybody else, but he didn't actually feel that way.
Yeah, like he was pretending to be a terrible person. I
but
don't
he
want to
never
get into it.
he never would have hurt her.
Yeah.
Like actually hurt her. And I think that's like
it would have been better if they were frenemies, if he had a reason not to like her.
Yeah.
And they like had banter, like, because they have this forced proximity is a trope in and of itself. If they had forced proximity because of the like bond, but he also didn't like her very much, that would have been more interesting.
And later on in the books, there is an example of like, despite them being mates. I hate that's crazy saying.
I know, I don't like it either.
I was telling Bella the other day,
despite
I was like, she should come up with a different word for it.
Despite them being soulmates, there is like you can push back against that. And I think one of the biggest times it's the trope is ruined is when one party secretly admires the other.
Yeah, they're like spending the whole time like, you're allowed to hate me because I'm just in love with you.
And then we all three read this book recently that it was like that too, right? Yeah, we read Beach Read by Emily Henry.
Yeah, where they had been in love with each other and they were mad at each other because they thought that the other one didn't like them, but that's the only reason that they didn't like each other.
Enemies. I guess like you could say they were rivals because they're like both in the publishing industry, but they weren't the same audience. Like if two romance authors were like competing, that would make sense because they're competing for
completely
book sales.
different.
The book, they have completely different book audiences too.
The summary of the book, the logline is like that this woman doesn't believe in love anymore because it's revealed that her father has an affair. So she moves next door to this man that is revealed to be her like college rival. So it's supposed to be rivals to lovers, but she had a crush on him in high school. Like she thought he was attracted, which is fine. I think that works in the trope, like that initial attraction. Yeah. But he was never a rival to her. Like she had this like preconceived notion that he didn't respect her work in romantic novels. Really, she just thought that he did because he was just successful in her class or something. He made a few offhand comments. It was just a misunderstanding.
He didn't like happy endings. And she writes romance, and romance typically has a happy ending. And so he was like, you write too many happy endings. So I just don't like the brooding man trope either.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah.
Like, why are you being like that?
She kind of just projected a little. She took
just
him not respecting her line of work necessarily with, oh, well, he hates me. But truly, like, the whole time, he was like, no. I thought you were awesome. I really liked you. And it doesn't work unless both of them have this disdain for each other because then you don't get that journey once again.
Mm-hmm. And so this leads me to the next, like, part of, like, an enemies to lovers. And this is the shift. So they start out opposing each other for some reason. And then there's something that happens in the narrative that causes this shift from I hate you to I hate you, but I respect you. So, like, they do something to, like, change the point of view. Like, they become friends, or they have more, like I said, more respect. Respect is the biggest piece of this. So, like, if they turn down a promotion at the job, that they put themselves out there to help the other character. And you're like, wait a minute. What? Did you? Like they risk their life. They save their life. It's like saving their life. It's like part of this, like what the trope is like called or something.
We just note that, ladies and gentlemen, that it seems as though respect leads to a healthier relationship, a more successful relationship.
Crazy idea.
Seems like you both need to respect each other for it to work. That's when it all starts clicking.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, like the biggest thing is them shifting from like, yeah, we're rivals and we don't like each other, but they do something to show like, okay, you may be my rival, you may be my enemy, but I do respect you. And so there's like this like air of like, yeah, like that respect. So there's this change in opinion, which also leads into this like the bickering that they have into more of a banterish bicker, where it's a little bit funny. It's less insulting and more like, okay, yeah, whatever, you're being silly right now, and you like, make fun of each other, and that's like, oh, I eat the banter up, and that's why another reason I don't like Reese and Feyre, because they don't banter enough for me. Sorry.
Yeah, it's too ooey gooey flirt, not enough like. None of bickering, like
silly,
really well written banter is like, oh my god, they like each other, but they don't even know it.
I did like the banter in Beach Read. Some people don't like it. I enjoyed it. I was like sitting there like, oh, they're being so silly.
Mm-hmm.
I think I remember you commenting on that.
Yeah,
and I agreed.
Their banter,
and I enjoyed Beach Read, but I just don't think that it was like a true. I don't think it was a true rivals to.
Or yeah, like I don't think that they were really enemies. Yeah. It was just kind of like an awkward, flirtatious situation, really.
They were just like opposites attract. That's more, I think, the genre that
you
I
also
like.
have to, if it's like this is with any book and any movie, but like you have to really care about the characters. You have to want them to get together.
Yeah.
At some point at least, you know? And with them, it was a little like, I mean, I want them to get together because of the woo-woo scenes.
Yeah. So now I know why you're all of a sudden her Goodreads is like going crazy. She's read 8 books this year.
But
Books? Interesting. I know what's in those books now.
but other than that, like I don't know. You don't really. I didn't feel like I wanted them to get together.
I think. Sorry, you go ahead, Callie.
Well, that leads into me talking about all the writing advice you get on this is that it all 100% depends on the character. Any romantic subplot at all is like your characters have to come first. They have to do things within the tropes that make sense for their character. Because if they're like 2 very passive characters and all of a sudden they're fighting to be enemies to lovers, they're like fighting a lot and you're like, these are 2 passive characters. Why are they fighting? It's completely out of character at this point, and you don't really ship them because they just are doing stuff that's out of character.
And it seems forced a little
so like
bit.
the
takes you out of it.
The main thing with any romantic trope is, like you said, character. Your characters have to come first, and then the romance has to naturally occur because of the way that the characters are.
And there was something we were discussing too about this, and that it was, as much as we love enemies to lovers, like all things, sometimes it can be dangerously done.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like because
romance trope really can. Yeah.
Whenever I was thinking of it, like my initial thought was like, it's not a good thing though. It's toxic, and so and I think it can be done not being toxic, but my impression of it was that it's and because I was kind of thinking about it as like them doing something so bad to you that you can't take back from, that you can't come back, and you kind of mentioned that earlier, where it's like they can't go far, they can't go too far, and they can't do too little. It has to be like they both just really don't like each other.
If your enemy, if the enemy love interest like murders your whole family, and then you're expected to just be like, well, fall in love. Like if Tamlin had murdered Feyre's entire family at the beginning of ACOTAR, then you cannot ship them after that.
Yeah.
And that's, I wish he murdered her whole family later in the series, but I don't want to talk about that.
Wait.
I think so too.
I actually just remembered. Do you guys remember that Lindsay Lohan movie we tried to watch? This is a perfect example of that.
Wait, not Irish Wish. What is it?
The Christmas one. Where they're like their exes.
Well, there's this Lindsay Lohan Christmas movie that we tried to watch around the holidays, and the beginning of the movie is them fighting at her like promotion party. Like she just got a huge job promotion. She's going to move to Europe. Yeah, like her dream job, and her boyfriend like has
childhood best friend turned boyfriend.
Yes,
so like know each other their whole lives.
And he just has he throws this huge temper tantrum in front of the whole family about how he's like, she's abandoning him.
He proposes to her when she says she was to keep her stay. And then she says no because she has to, And
he says that her dead mother would be so disappointed in her if she went to Europe. Dead mother. And then
following her dreams.
And the rest of the movie is them like meeting 5, I don't know, some amount of time later. Mm-hmm. And us trying to root for them to get back together, and him being like, oh, I'm so sorry, I've changed. How are you doing? I was like, no matter how much you've changed, you can never come back from something like that. And that's like, we couldn't finish the movie because we just hated the guy so much. Never mind, Callie could.
I did too, but
it's because the movie.
No, but I felt that way. No,
I didn't ship them by the end. I'm not a quitter, so
yeah. But it was frustrating. It's like when someone goes too far. It's also different in high fantasy, like you were kind of saying, like in high fantasy versus real life kind of a thing. Because like them wanting to kill each other when they're in the fairy world is like, that makes sense.
Death happens a lot more.
But if it's like in like, regular
day-to-day
life, like that's a pretty severe thing to do.
Yeah, like if you have an assassin and somebody else, like that works because they're like it's their profession. But if it's like real life, like our normal day-to-day lives, they're like job rivals, but they're trying to like actually murder each other. Okay,
maybe they can't come back.
It's a little too much.
You can't really come back from that.
And I think like one of the biggest other like great examples of why it could be dangerous is because like you romanticize those toxic relationships. Like what is it, Colleen Hoover novels?
Colleen Hoover, Haunting Adeline's another one that's not Colleen Hoover, but it's a similar genre. And even like the later books of the ACOTAR series, Feyre and Rhys they're not a healthy couple. They're pretty toxic, and especially in A Court of Silver Flames.
And 50 Shades of Grey as well is a little bit controversial as well. So,
it's like there is this it's obviously it's fiction, it's not real. So like fiction isn't, not everything is a reflection of reality, right? But you have this sort of but it can influence our perception of reality. So like glamorizing a bad romance or like a toxic romance can become,
because the thing about fiction and writing is you get to decide what happens. Like you're writing the story, you say they hate each other, but then they don't. But like when you're getting into relationships in real life, you never know if that person's going to change or is going to like actually care about you. And like getting with someone that you hate or is kind of mean to you doesn't mean that eventually you're going to be like in love and happy and like, you know, because it's not a story. It's not planned out that way.
It's almost like I like when they do all the change before becoming lovers.
Yes.
And that's part of like the breaking it down. You establish this trust. So there's a sacrifice between them and they start trusting each other. But then there's a resistance. They're like, I'm supposed to hate you. I don't want to be in a relationship with you. And they do all this personal growth because of the other person, but they never get together until the growth is done.
Yeah.
And this is so well done in so many examples as well. So like the places that it's done well, something I love with my whole heart is Pride and Prejudice. That's like almost like an example of that is where, and this is more of a like,
sorry.
What I love so much about PP is that it starts as, it's more frenemies to lovers, right? Yeah. Because they're forced to be in the same rooms with each other. They have together, the same friends, they mingle. But what just exactly like what you said is that like one of them makes a sacrifice and then they're still like kind of resistant on it, but they like go and they change themselves and they come back to it. That's like Pride and Prejudice is a great push and pull. Yeah. Because he wants to be with her. She says no. He goes fixes himself and she's like, oh no, I want to be with him. And then he's like, are you sure? And then there's like one last chance. Like one of the last lines of the movie is like, say no and I will be gone from your life forever. But she's like, but wait. And that's kind of the epitome of it because it's all about overcoming prejudice.
And a bad example that is going to be Edward and Bella, because Edward doesn't he like freaking stalks her.
Guys, I want you all to know that we like have discussions before this just to like make sure that we're all on the same page. And she didn't bring this up before.
I forgot about it until right now. But
just dropping a bomb on me.
It's because he like watches her while she sleeps. He stalks her. He does weird possessive-y things.
Santa Claus?
And then instead of
Santa Claus?
But like
it's
written off. Instead of like giving him a chance to redeem them or him doing not weird things, that he does these weird things and they just write him off because he's so in love. That is glamorized in that toxic relationship. Because if some man was following me to my house and watching me sleep, that you cannot come back from that bitch.
No, it's real creepy.
That's haunting Adeline.
But then when you're 16, you're like, someone cares. Someone notices.
Yeah, so like that's where that like you do see that toxic behavior coming in.
But not like Pride and Prejudice. Pride and Prejudice is perfect.
Pride and Prejudice is perfect.
It's so perfect.
Jane Austen.
I mean, and that's kind of what I'm saying. Like that kind of falls under the like almost kind of princessy movies for me. Like those kind of old school like timepieces of like the same with what's the one? Why am I blanking on the name? Not Elle Enchanted.
You're talking about Princess.
Ever After. Ever After. It's kind of similar. Like
Princess Diaries, yeah.
They like each other, but there's that tension at the beginning because and then she lies and all that. But like a lot of those movies had the frenemies to
I love it.
Yeah,
lovers.
Ever After even has a little bit of that, like rivals or frenemies, because she's like, you're a fucking prince and you're the reason that my life sucks and you suck. And Elle Enchanted does it too.
They're literally like, you need to get it together. You have all the power in the world and you're not. And then you go and you see so much of enemies to lovers is like rooted in like personal growth.
Yeah.
And then like,
and that's what I said, like doing it well, the personal growth happens before the romance.
Because then all that deep affection can stem. And you read Cool Prince.
Yeah, I did want to bring this one up. It feels very spoiler to talk about it because it's the whole like their enemies to lovers really happens over the course of the whole book series, like the full trilogy. But this one is similar to where like they start out hating each other and they have reason to. Like he's cruel prince, and she's a human, and a human in the Fae world that is loved in a way that he never was. And so there's this like tension between them. But then over the course of the plot of the story, he is forced to face the abuse he endured as a child. And she also grows as a person. who's less violent and terrible, but they're both a little bit terrible, and that's what I like about it too. But
And that's a good example.
But like, yeah, it's interesting too, because it goes from like we hate each other to a toxic sort of like back and forth into something that's healthy. And so there is a lot of growth between the two of them in that series, and I love that series. And it's, oh my goodness, I could go on, but yeah, that those books do a great job of exploring it, and it is meant for teenagers too. So like there is like that young audience as well that explores like toxicity within enemies to lovers, and then how to get out of that toxicity and like really grow as two individual people and actually care about one another in a way that works for both of you and isn't toxic between the relationship. You know, they're not kind to their people, but they are very like kind to each other. It's a great book series. I was telling Bella that I wish I read it when I was like the age appropriate for it, because it would have been one of my favorite top series of like all time.
What is the age appropriate for it, do you think? Like,
17 to 20, 16 to 20, like late teenager.
I'm like a 23-year-old teenager, so it's perfect for me.
But yeah, so I think that book is a great example of enemies to lovers. That it was like one of the first ones I read, those enemies to lovers, that was very, very much like we're enemies, and then like they had to like squash their feelings about one another and like their past with one another and like move forward, and like the plot of the story was so heavy. Like that one too, like the romance in the books is like the tertiary plot. It's literally not even the main thing going on, which that's my favorite thing, because Beach Read made me realize I'm really not a romance reader. I like there to be something else going on, because if the whole plot is will they, won't they, I'm like, well, they will. It's a romance book.
Oh, and she's like, boring.
I get bored, yeah.
And I don't know. I feel like the reason I like this trope so much, why it's so popular, why it sells so well, is just that it's, I don't know, it's so innate, like in our nature to just like, I don't know, accept other flaws. I think I don't know, something to learn from this is just exactly like what you said, where so much of these novels is rooted in also accepting your own flaws.
Yeah.
So I think that
and growing from your own flaws as well.
Your enemy holds the mirror up to you.
Yeah.
You both grow, and then you realize that you love each other.
Yeah.
Because I think in like what we said, like what was wrong with so many of those other like the poor examples was that when your enemy, I guess, already has secret
Adores
affections
you.
for
Yeah.
you, then there's no point in that journey where you get to look at yourself. And also you don't get that fulfillment of like them looking at you and being like, you're flawed and I still love you. Like you get to do
They already think that you're perfect.
You get to be the I'm gonna fix him girl.
Yeah.
But you don't get to sit there and be like, I want to be better for this person. And I don't think there's anything more fulfilling than that feeling, wanting to be better for another person.
Yeah, like I really don't think Rhysand and Feyre hold a mirror up to each other at all. Like Feyre never, like I think Rhysand checks his aggression a little bit, but he never really gets out of his aggression. And Rhysand never holds a mirror up to Feyre. He just adores her all the time, no matter what. And I think that's one of the reasons why I just really didn't connect with that story very much, because it's just like they're not challenging each other. They're just infatuated with one another constantly, and it's like I want there to be something more than that.
And that ideal needs to be pushed more. That ideal needs to push. Like we all need to be. Like we all need to accept that when we get in relationships, both of us have to put it in work.
Yeah, like your partner. I feel like it's healthy, even in any sort of relationship, platonic or romantic, to be able to hold a mirror up to one another and be like, you know what, I acted poorly in this instance. I'm going to change for the better because of it. And I'm going to do better with my friends or my partner or anything like that. And I think that that's also part of the importance, is because you don't want to carry your partner or your friends either. You want to be in the same place and grow together.
If you are finding yourself not having that perfect someone that you're like, I want to be better for them. Just like what Callie said, you can be better for your friends too. There's plenty of enemies to besties out there.
Yes.
And I do think enemies to lovers works when it's enemies to friends to lovers better too. Because like when they have to have a mutual ground, because you don't want it to be all be like, I'm in love with you, I'm gonna fuck you. Like
that's so funny, because I was going to talk about Toy Story first. And she just said that.
Sorry.
So just transitioning from that, I was going to say, just if lovers is impossible, if you guys aren't going to be smooching, there's Toy Story.
Yeah.
That's my favorite enemies to friends.
Yeah.
And Stepbrothers. That's another great one. So if you're over
Where they
there
hate
like
each other and their friends.
you're over there like no one's holding up a mirror for me. Like I want to find my Ryzan so that I can be perfect, so that I can grow for him. Girl, no.
Find your Woody.
Find your
Is that his
because we all need a friend
Woody?
in us.
It's like Toy Story.
Yeah.
Find your
I
Woody.
got a friend in me.
Charlotte's Web.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Find
That
your
came out
Throwback.
Yeah, throwback.
Anyway, I think the consensus of this is go watch Pride and Prejudice. Go
and
read
Charlotte's
Cruel
Web.
Prince
Yeah.
and Charlotte's Web. And if you find yourself wanting someone to accept you for all flaws, just remember that you also have to be open and ready to look at your own.
And be
Yeah.
respectful.
And accept
You're
that.
not perfect. You're not perfect, little Feyre.
And a great relationship works when you respect them. So
Yeah.
get her done.
Get her done.
I'm just thinking about Wilbur now on this scene.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
And yeah, the basis
Don't
of this
be.
trope is respect.
Yeah.
And then in the end, you have unity. They're not fighting about the thing that they're fighting about in the beginning. That's the big thing is like if they're still bickering about the thing that made them enemies in the first place, they never freaking grew from that. So, and then they, you know, it goes from I hate you to I'd take a bullet for you.
Mm-hmm.
And that is enemies to lovers.
And it's beautiful. I love it. Yay.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you for joining us. Thanks for talking about one of our favorite tropes that we see
Yeah.
everywhere. And honestly, I wish there was more genuine content that had this trope, to be honest. I was looking
Mhm.
around and I was trying to refresh
like-
and I was like, actually, there's not enough.
I feel like a lot of it can be classified as almost poorly done, you know?
Mm.
They try to do it a lot.
People try it a lot.
You just have to
And
commit.
I think at the end of it, if you don't like this trope and you feel like it's overdone and it's everywhere,
It's because it's not
it's
doing a good
popular
job.
right now. There's lots
Yeah.
of other things that are not enemies to lovers out there. There's so much content.
and it's hard for something to be overdone when there's such a surplus of other
Mhm.
genres out there. Like, just go
It's-
watch something
it
else for a
is-
little while.
It is the number one thing right now. It is the popular thing. If you are not into it, there's plenty of other stuff out there. Like my favorite trope growing up was always best friends to lovers. I freaking ate that up.
But for now, thanks for joining us. Thanks for talking about this.
Thank
with
you
us.
so much.
Are your dishes clean?
Go wash your, go wash your
Fold your
dishes.
laundry.
Fold your laundry.
I hope you
Get
finished
to work
your little
safe.
task.
Tell your friends that you love them.
Yeah.
And that you're
Because last week
glad
was
for them.
Valentine's Day, but every day is Valentine's Day. If you tell people you love them.
Exactly. And tell yourself you love them too.
Yeah.
You love her or him or them too.
Mhm.
Yay.
Look in the mirror. I love you, flaws and all.
We'll see you guys in the next episode.
Love
Thanks for
Love you
joining
all.
us. Bye.
Bye.